Hello and welcome to your full moon reading. It's the full moon of Elul coming up right now, which means we're halfway through this month of preparation where we are readying ourselves for the new year that's coming up, Rosh Hashanah, in just half a month now. And I'm doing a reading today to give us some insight about how best for us to prepare. How should we prepare for this full moon time? What is coming into fullness? And what do we need to do to get ready in the second half of the month of Elul as we head into Rosh Hashanah? Like I said, this is a time of preparation, really examining how the previous year has gone. Maybe making amends even before we get to Rosh Hashanah, so we have less to clear as we walk into the new year, so that we can walk in light. So I'm going to pull out soul cards today. I'm going to pull out 3 different soul cards for you to choose from, and this is a deck of cards that have no set meaning. So whatever cards come out, you get to decide what they mean. I'm just going to pull from the top after this shuffle. So for card number 1, this is what your card looks like. For card number 2, this is your card. And for card number 3, nice. This is your card. So take a moment to pause the video if you need to and choose which of these 3 cards is speaking to you today as a message for you for this full moon of Elul and our direction for the second half of the month as we move in toward Rosh Hashanah. And I will look forward to seeing you in your reading. I'll put the timestamps down below. Hello, card number 1. Let's take a look at your card first. It's such an interesting painting. And so we have a picture of a female body with breasts and nude, and their head, if this is their head, they don't seem to have a head of their own, but there is a head next to it. It seems as if their head is flown off, like it's no longer attached, that perhaps it is taking travels of its own, or this body has lost contact with it in some way. And around the head are a series of what look like leaves to me. So I don't know how that resonates for you, but it seems to me like it's someone who is maybe detached from their body right now. And maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe it's a good thing. I'm not going to judge. Sometimes we need to let our heads roam free and let our bodies be. So we're going to take us out in Hebrunes to see if we can get some further illumination from them. And the way I'm going to do this today is I'm just going to do a scatter reading. So I'm going to reach in, shuffle, and then throw down a handful and see what we have. And whatever comes out, that's going to be our reading. Wow, okay. So we only have 2 that are face up today. And I'm going to pull out the rest that are face down. I might take another couple, but let's look at what we have here today. And I'm going to leave that upside down. So what I'm seeing here is the lev, the heart in the letter lamed. And what I find really interesting about this is if you look at this card and this letter, it's similar like this, and then the head goes up off at an angle. They're mirrors of each other. The lamed is the letter that means heart mind. And I think that's really interesting with regards to this card. So what's up here is the heart mind maybe is floating free, like I said. Lamed is the letter that also speaks to learning and teaching. So there's something that you maybe have learned or are learning now, that it's time for you to turn around and teach. The Lamed is the one letter that reaches above the line in Hebrew, so it's about reaching up with aspiration toward connection with the divine. I like that it's such a tall letter, that it has this this reaching up. It's almost like a little tiny vav at the top, and vav is a letter that means connection. So there's something important about connecting to the divine, to yourself, to your heart. There's this level part that goes across. It almost looks like the earth, like the earth here, and then down below we've got this root that is going into the ground. So it's being rooted in the earth and reaching up for connection with divinity at the same time. And Lamed is the letter that connects to the intestines in the body. And I love that this actually almost looks a little bit like a digestive system, where you've got something that comes in and then it goes across for a while and then it comes back down. And what we do not need is let go. So I like this letter in that it's speaking to this idea of taking something in and being nourished by it. And that can be information or spirituality, or it can be food. But taking what we need to know, what we need to find out, and then letting go of what is no longer serving us. So this idea of information, education, spiritual nourishment, and or physical nourishment is all connected in here with the Lamed. In the Sefer Yetzirah, the book of creation, that speaks about the letters, the Lamed is connected to the foundation of action as well. So there's something about action, moving forward, doing something active right now. And with regards to the situation here where we've got the full moon of Elul, and we're preparing ourselves for Rosh Hashanah. And one of the ways we're doing that is by reaching up with heart for connection with the divine. And also reaching down and connecting with our bodies as well. And interestingly, the Lamed is the letter that's connected with the month of Tishrei, which is where Rosh Hashanah happens. So this is the upcoming month. We have this to look forward to, this idea of heart, this idea of aspiration, this idea of learning and teaching, and the foundation of action, where we move forward to maybe make repair, maybe make amends, maybe make teshuvah in some physical way. It is connected to the constellation of Libra, because that's the time of year that the Tishrei happens. And it's also connected to the tribe of Ephraim. Now, Ephraim was one of the sons of Joseph, and Joseph's portion of his inheritance from Jacob was split between his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. And Ephraim was the younger of the sons, but he was elevated up by Yaakov, who, when he put his hand on the sons to bless them, he switched which hand went on which son. So the right hand went on the younger son and the left hand went on the elder son. So Ephraim was elevated above his brother by the blessing of Jacob. And so there's something that's going on here about elevation, about reaching up, about learning and teaching, and about really connecting to your heart. And our second letter, interestingly, is the next letter in the alphabet. It's the letter Mem, and it showed up upside down here. This is what it looks like. And it is considered a womb. It is the mother letter of water. And it begins the words Mayim Chaim, the waters of life. And you can see it looks a little bit like a womb. It's got a container with an opening at the bottom, so there's some kind of gestation that is happening. Mem is about transformation and cleansing through water, usually. It corresponds to the wet months of the year. So as we're coming into the end of the summer in the Northern Hemisphere and moving into a place of the wet months, the wet time of year, we have this transformation that takes place. And there's a gestation that happens, the Mayim Hayim, those waters of life, which reflect back on the amniotic fluid that we were all nurtured inside of our mothers. So it has to do with the belly in the body, and it has to do with emotion, oftentimes grief. The prophetess Miriam is affiliated with the Mem, as she had a magical well that followed her throughout the desert. And this idea of mikvah, which is cleansing through water, also begins with the Mem. The Mem is the number 40 in Gematria, so it has to do with the 40 days on Mount Sinai, the 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, the 40 days of rain in the story of Noah, and the 40 weeks of gestation in the human body. So all this watery belly gestation imagery is here in the Mem. And it's interesting that it's upside down on the lower part of this reading, which to me says that there may be some fear or concern about what you're gestating right now. That maybe there's some kind of fear that's going on regarding transformation that needs to happen. But the thing I'm thinking about with this disconnection between the head and the body, that even if you're concerned that you're not having the transformation that you need to take, or having the cleansing that needs to happen with regards to the Mem and that gestation period where things grow and transform and then are birthed out, even if you're concerned and afraid around that, you can bring yourself back up to the Lamed and know that your heart is reaching up. Even if your head doesn't feel attached to the body, it still is attached. It's so interesting how much this looks like this picture to me. That you're reaching up, and there may feel like a disconnection, but that disconnection is about transformation. It's about digesting the information that you have and releasing what isn't necessary any longer. And I think that's a really beautiful way to look at this full moon that we're in right now, this belly, this fullness of the moon, which feels like a pregnancy. It feels like things have come to a full place, and now we need to release that. We need to give birth to that, and we need to release what isn't necessary any longer, and maybe find a way to reattach our heads to our bodies, get back into our body, do whatever action is required to do transformation and teshuvah, returning to ourselves again. I think I am going to pull out one more letter because it feels a little bit odd to only have two. It's fine, but I would like to give you one more letter here, so I'm going to reach in and shuffle and see what comes up. One more piece. And we have the letter Chet. And Chet is the letter that begins the word Chai, which means life. So life is here. And darkness too. Choshek, which is the first time the Chet appears in the Torah, is in the word Choshek, which means darkness. And again, darkness is nothing to fear. It's nothing to be concerned about. It's just the absence of light, and without it, we can't see the light. So there's some kind of contract or covenant coming. This looks a little bit like a marriage canopy, a chuppah. And it's the number 8 in Gematria, and 8 is that infinity loop. So it has this reference to the infinite here. It also speaks to the 8th day of creation, which is to say 7 days of creation, and then one more, which means the rest of time. So we have this idea of the infinite in terms of time and the infinite in terms of connection with the divine. And Chet is also, because it's the number 8, it's referencing the idea of covenants. On the 8th day of a child's life, there's generally either a circumcision or a naming ceremony that ties the child to the divine in our tradition. So we have this idea of contracts and covenants, and the picture that looks like a chuppah, the marriage canopy, is also a connection with another person. It can also be a connection with yourself or the connection with the divine. But the word that comes up when you see a chet is high, which means life, like I said. And so life is here. Life is present here. It's this promise that regardless of how we feel, regardless of the emotions that we're going through, the turmoil, regardless of what we learn and what we teach, or how well we connect, life is the choice that we're making. Chet is also the foundation of speech in the Sefer Yetzirah. So maybe there's something you need to speak aloud. And because we're coming into Rosh Hashanah, before we get to Tishrei, perhaps it would be appropriate for you to speak to the people that you need to speak to forgive those who need forgiveness, and to ask for forgiveness from those that you may have missed the mark with. So do some speaking. Take action right now. Choose life. Choose life and make that connection. Make that covenant with the divine. Make that contract that you want to make. And find your way through the darkness to choose life and find a way to reconnect yourself with your body. That's what I'm seeing for you right now, those of you who chose card number 1. I hope you have a beautiful second half of Elul. I hope to see you before then. And thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Hello, card number 2, people. Let's take a look at your card here. I love this. It looks like a person holding an egg, right? And you can see on their head they have looks like a flower of some sort. Something is blooming. They've got their eyes closed peacefully. They're holding their egg, and this halo of ripples coming out from behind their head. And for the full moon, this just feels really poignant. Something is gestating. You've got some kind of egg that needs to be nurtured and protected, perhaps, and hatched. So let's get some Hebrunes down to see what further clarification we have for you. And I'm going to do a reading where I'm just going to do a shuffle and then a scatter of Hebrunes and see what comes up. And we'll read that. Okay, we got a bunch. All right, first I'm going to pull out every one that is face down here, and then we'll read what's left. So starting at the top of the reading, we're having the letter Ayin, and this is great because it's landed right on their head. Ayin is the letter that means an eye. It means being watched over by the divine and also being able to see one's way forward. It is the number 70 in Gematria. And the number 7 has to do with the completion because of the 7 days of creation. 7 times 10, 70, is this ultimate manifestation of completion. And so I think, what we're dealing with here, from where I sit, is the end of the year. The end of Elul brings the end of our year 5783. And we're moving into 5784, so we have an ultimate completion here. And hopefully we're being able to see our way forward. Even though this person's eyes are closed, we have the divine watching over them and an ability to see their way forward. The other thing I love about Ayin is that it's the foundation of laughter. In the Sefer Yetzirah, and the version that I read, it corresponds to laughter. And I love that because when things come to an end, sometimes it can be challenging. But ideally, if one is able to see the truth of the situation, maybe we will find the humor in it. So I love that. We've got laughter and endings here. There's a lot of associations with the number 70 regarding the 70 elders of Moses, the 70 members of Yaakov's tribe that went down to Egypt, the 70 descendants of Noah, the 70 seats on the Sanhedrin. So these large groups of people who are led by one person. And there's a concept of judgment that goes with Ayin as well. But the Sanhedrin is a judging body. The elders of Moses were the ones who were tasked to make decisions around what needs to happen with the people. And it corresponds to the tribe of Dan. Dan is the name that means judgment. So there may be something coming to an end, and the judgment that comes with that, whatever discernment needs to come through at the end of whatever project or timeline you're on. Just below that, we have the letter Mem, and beautifully, the Mem is about water. And it's about gestation. You can see that it looks a little bit like a womb because it's got that roundness to it. It corresponds to the belly in the body. And it is the number 40, so it has that 40 weeks of gestation that's affiliated with it as well. And all things 40. 40 days of rain in the story of Noah, and 40 days up on Mount Sinai for Moses, and 40 years in the wilderness. So all these journeys that took place inside of a container, and then a birth that takes place. And I love this for the full moon, because the full moon is about the fullness. It's about the things that have grown and grown and grown and grown. And we have this egg here that sort of reflects that belly in the body. The Mem is also about cleansing and transformation that takes place because of the water element, the idea of mikvah, which is a ritual bath that can happen at any time. And so all these ideas of water and emotion that goes with water as well. And I love the ripples around the head of this person on the card, that this idea of maybe they're bathing in this water to transform or to gestate this egg. So something is coming to an end. Some gestation is happening right now. And then the next letter over, we have the letter Dalet. And Dalet is a doorway. It's the doorway through which one has to pass in order to get born. So the birth canal really is what it comes down to. It's about transitions, so liminal spaces, those doorways that we have to pass through in order to get to the next iteration. Humility, dal in Hebrew means humble or poor. And the binary transformation of wisdom and foolishness. In the Sefer Yetzirah, it has this binary transformation. So we need to make good, wise decisions, or really embrace our foolishness, perhaps, in order to get through the doorway. So this threshold, this idea of a threshold. And Dalet is the number 4, so it speaks to the 4 directions of north, south, east, west, and the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, and water, plus the 4 seasons. So as we're transitioning seasons, this Dalet is an important doorway through which we pass. And I love that that's right in the center here, because it seems really essential that we're dealing with an ending, a gestation, and then a passageway through to the next thing. And over here in the lower quadrant of the reading, we have the letter Beit on the lower right here, and it's upside down. This is what it looks like. It speaks to a house, a home, some kind of building structure. Oftentimes it's affiliated with either a house or a shul, some kind of school or an office building even. But I think of it as, where do we dwell? And for me, the Beit really reflects the idea of the body, because we do dwell within our bodies regardless of where we are, at home or work or abroad. And so this fact that this is upside down over here on the lower side makes me think that there may be some challenge or fear around where we feel, how we feel comfortable in our body. And there may be some discomfort around a gestation, around a birth that happens. Births are traditionally very uncomfortable. Having given birth twice, I can attest to this. So we have this bait. It's a little upside down. And so there may be some challenge with connecting to our body, or something having to do with our home, maybe topsy-turvy right now. And the bait also has to do with the mouth and the body. It corresponds to the mouth and the body. So there may be some issue around speaking or feeling heard, or possibly even what you're ingesting. What are you taking into your body, into your mouth, that needs to be examined, about whether there's maybe needs to be some change around that. The bait is the first letter of Torah, even though it is the second letter in the alphabet. So there's this concept that's coming up right now about the idea of seconds, things that come second being made first. That's a theme that happens throughout Torah, where the second son is elevated above the first son. And maybe the second time we do something could be more poignant than the first time we do it. So try and try again. It is about beginnings, because the first letter of Torah, the first word of Torah, is Bereshit. So we have a new beginning coming, that maybe we felt a little uncomfortable in our body, in our home, and it's time for us to start again, to try a second time. And maybe that's what this gestation is about right now. We have a second half of Elul to work through whatever we're working through before we get to the new year. So we have a second chance, this second 2 weeks of Elul. And down on the bottom, we have the letter Gimel. And this is the letter that means a foot or a camel. It's about walking forward and making some forward movement. Oftentimes it's about running forward, in fact. And it is way down low on the reading. And so I'm guessing that it's more about what isn't going to be helpful. What's not going to be helpful is rushing. Rushing forward right now might be really, really not going to serve you right now. So maybe it's time to just, again, rest in our body and let the gestation take place. Don't try to run forward and hurry things. We do have 2 more weeks before the new year, so we can take our time. It is the binary transformation of peace and evil. And peace, meaning, which is translated shalom, more accurately wholeness, finding wholeness instead of brokenness, let's say. Rather than peace and evil, I think of it as wholeness and brokenness. So how can we transform whatever is broken into what is whole? How can we take care of ourselves and our bodies so that we can right that bait, so that we can transform things and find our way forward patiently and through the gestation as we walk through that doorway with humility, ducking our heads so that we don't hit them on the door frame. So the way I'm seeing this is we're coming to an ending. We're being watched over by the divine. We're gestating. We've got these ripples around us. We have a doorway we're about to walk through. That there may be some discomfort in our body, and that rushing forward right now will not serve us well. So take our time. Find a way to connect with our body, to really sit, maybe sit with the discomfort, but sit knowing that something new is being born soon. And when we come through that doorway, we'll have a better idea, and we'll be able to see even better how things are going to come in the new year. So for those of you who chose this card, this has been your reading. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a beautiful full moon, and I will look forward to seeing you here next time. Hello, card number 3. Let's first take a look at your card here today. And I am very impressed. We have this character who's holding on to an orb. And for me, when I saw it immediately, I was like, there's the full moon. And it could be, I guess it could be the sun as well. It looks like a winter sun if it is a sun. But it's some kind of fullness that this person is holding on to. And you can see in their face, they look a little... they look calm. they could be a little sad even, but they've got this orb, this glowing orb right where their heart is. And I see the mountains down below as well. Kind of looks a little bit cold. We're coming into the end of summer where I am, and we have this fullness right in the heart. And I think it's just beautiful. So let's set this character off to the side. And we're going to pull out some Hebrunes today to get some clarity about what's coming up for the full moon and the next couple of weeks as we move into Rosh Hashanah. The way I'm going to do this today is I'm going to shuffle up and then just take a handful and do a scatter reading. So let's see what comes up. Okay, first I'm going to pull out the ones that are face down here. Except that I'm going to leave because that is the Ein Sof. And we'll just start with the Ein Sof because it's right at the top of our reading anyway. Let me back out a little bit so you can see the other. Okay, so the Ein Sof, it literally means without end, no ending. And as you can see, it's blank on both sides. And I always leave one of these in my readings because it's as if the blank page is here as well as the engraved letters. It's this idea of the unending, the void, the Tehom, the boundlessness that existed before creation, and the substrate, the material onto which all of creation was carved. In the Sefer Yetzirah, the book of creation, there's this concept that the letters were used to create channels through which the divine pours into the world. But there needs to be something into which to carve, and so we have the Ein Sof. So it has this idea of this primordial chaos that existed before creation and will continue to exist after creation. And it has to do with the infinite, the timelessness that exists outside of time. All that existed before creation, all of matter, time, and existence is fashioned from this oneness that is the divine. There's a story that the divine existed before everything and then had to contract themselves in order to make space. This is the space that they made. So I love that this is the top part of your reading. It speaks to the infinite. It speaks to unlimited potential for creation, a blank page, a blank slate onto which to carve whatever you would like to see in the new year. And it looks a little bit like the full moon. You can see it's almost the exact same size and shape as this orb here. So maybe that's what we're seeing here is the Ein Sof, this ability to have whatever it is that is coming. And it's right in the heart. So that infinite possibility exists for you within the heart. And right on top of the card, the letter that landed is the Vav. And the Vav is the letter that literally means and in Hebrew. It's all about connection. It's a peg or a hook that is used for connecting things, like a tent peg, which tethers a home or the Mishkan to the ground so it does not blow away. The little hooks that hold together the veils around the Holy of Holies. And this idea of connection with the divine. So planting oneself like a root in the earth and reaching up for connection with divinity. You can see that it looks a little bit like it has a yud at the top. The yud is the first letter of the divine name, the yud he vav he. And it's also like a spine. So standing tall, reaching up to connect with the divine. And it's right here on top of the infinite, right here on top of the full moon, on top of that heart space. So it's also the sense of hearing in the Sefer Yetzirah. Each of the letters sometimes has either a sense or a transformation that goes on. Vav is connected to hearing. And so we need to connect. In order to connect, we need to hear. We need to listen and hear what the divine has to say to us. It's about unity with divinity. It's about that andness. And it's the number 6. So it speaks to the 6th day of creation, which is the last day of active creation right before Shabbat happens. So there's this idea of one last thing that needs to get done right before the end, So things are almost completed here. It also, because of the 6 directions, the north, south, east, west, above and below, it's like being in the center of a divine temple. And I think this is beautiful to have the Ein Sof at the top and then this idea of connection right here in the heart. How do we connect with the divine? I'm going to look at, I'm going to go all the way over to the right here. And the reason I'm going to do that is because here we have the letter Lamed, and the letter Lamed is heart-mind. It's about connecting, again, with divinity, with our hearts. And so I just think this is great that you've got both the Vav connecting right over the heart of the Ein Sof and the Lamed as well. And the Lamed is about reaching up with heart. It's the only letter that reaches above the line in Hebrew. So it is about reaching up with heart. Again, it's got that little yud at the top of it. And then this earth sort of space, and then another root going down. And so it's about connection. It's about learning and teaching. It's about digesting, taking in what you've learned and digesting what is useful and releasing the rest. So there's something very poignant about having the Lamed here, the idea of heart, mind, the idea of aspiration, reaching up for connection, and learning, teaching, digesting, absorbing. Lev is that idea of not just emotion, not just thought, but the connection of those two together. And the Lamed is the letter that's affiliated with Tishrei, which is the first day of Rosh Hashanah. So we have the new year coming in 2 weeks, and this is the letter that connects with that month. So something is coming. It's way over here on the right, and it's Tishrei. It's coming for us. We're coming to it, and we're coming into it with our heart, with our connection to heart. Down at the bottom, we have the Mem here. And this showed up in every one of the readings today. Mem is about gestation. It's about water, and it's the mother letter of water. It's about the wet season, the winter, where in the Northern Hemisphere we are coming into the winter as summer comes to a close. It's about transformation and gestation. Again, it's the number 40. So it has to do with that 40 weeks of gestation in the human body. And cleansing. Mikvah, that idea of the water that cleanses us in order to become pure again so that we can walk into the new year without any of the baggage that we've had so far. So we have something gestating here, something that is about to be born, something that is needing cleansing, some kind of deep emotion that has to do with maybe grief even. You can see this person, like I said, looks a little sad here. Maybe we were letting go of something that's challenging for us. And since this is really low in the reading, it makes me think that maybe there's a challenge around grieving what we need to release. And that's perfectly valid, and it's really important to do. So take this next couple of weeks to grieve what it is you need to grieve right now, and release and birth out that which needs to be birthed. And the lowest letter in the reading here we have is the letter Samech. Samech is at the very bottom, and it looks like this. It looks like the moon again. Also, we've got this blankness, this circle, and this circle. Samech is the letter that means to be surrounded. The word sovev begins with Samech. Samech is about boundaries. It's about setting up protection around oneself. And this is really low on the reading, and it's actually slightly tipped over, which makes me think that there may be some challenges around setting boundaries. Maybe you haven't had a good practice of setting up boundaries for yourself. Maybe you're not feeling surrounded with protection or support right now. It is the foundation of agitation in the Sefer Yetzirah. So There may be something that's agitating right now. You can see it's got a little bit of a thorn at the top, but that thorn is also a yud. So it's like it's possibly an agitation that is propelling you forward to make better boundaries. So finding your way through the transformations. This is also like about wheels and cycles and seasons because of that circular shape to it. So whatever you've got going on, whatever is the challenge here with the gestation that you've got going on, whatever boundaries you need to think about and reestablish, that agitation is propelling you forward in connection with the infinite, in connection with divinity, in connection with your heart mind. Know that the infinite is here for you. The infinite is above all of this in the reading. That you have the ability to reach into your heart for that that concept of the infinite in terms of the divine. That there's connection there for you if you can just touch into it. And even if we've got some grief, even if we've got something that we need to let go of that's causing deep emotion right now, we're having challenges with our feeling surrounded, feeling connected, feeling protected, know that this is what's coming. Tishrei is coming. Our hearts will be reconnected to the divine, even though we have to let some things go. So for those of you who chose the third card today, this has been your reading. I hope you have a beautiful full moon. Maybe sit some and feel those difficult emotions. Maybe think about ways to set up stronger boundaries for yourself and let that agitation propel you forward into finding the connection with the infinite and really touching in with your heart mind as you come into the month of Tishrei. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this is wonderful for you, and I look forward to seeing you here next time.